Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Here we go, Popeyes. Here we go. What do we want?
Popeye's chicken wings.
Why do we want them?
They're the official wing of watching football.
What flavors are we gonna get?
All of them.
Be more specific.
Sweet and spicy, signature hot, roasted garlic parmesan, honey barbecue, sweet and smoky chipotle, and honey lemon pepper.
When do we want them?
When we're watching the game.
That's right. Game time is wing time. Woo!
Let's go.
Have that chicken from Popeyes.
At participating U.S. restaurants.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. It is Wednesday the 4th of September and it's the return after an unplanned absence last week of our women's football show. I'm your host, Rich Ferraro, and in a little while we'll be chatting to our guest, Emilka, who will be here to talk to us about how she feels about the Reds having a professional women's team. Now, of course, you won't have missed that in the meantime, the team have still been playing and they've been scoring plenty of goals. So let's just go through the last couple of matches since Adam was in touch with you along with Ellie to bring the last proper podcast. And last week there was a midweek match in the Cup which was played down at Grange Park, and it was a local derby against Notts County. And it was a resounding victory for the Reds. They won 6-0, despite the fact that, oddly enough, it was actually 0-0 at half-time. Forest had made a huge number of changes to the team. It was a chance to refresh the team after the big victory against Sporting Calcer, and Bridget Galloway, Georgie Ferguson, Katie Dungate and Holly Olding were all making their first starts for Forest. As I say, it was 0-0 at half-time, so the second half brought a flurry of goals. Galloway got 2 of them. And we also saw goals from Charlie Wellings, Mel Johnson, as well as Nat Johnson and Freya Thomas. So you can't really argue with the magnitude of a 6-0 victory. So that brought us back to league action at the weekend. And this is away against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And in this match, it was once again a resounding victory, and once again 6 goals scored, but away from home, which is even more impressive, I think you'll agree. So with this match, the same starting 11 that had played against Sporting Calcer the previous week returned to league action, and there's again a quiet start. But on the other hand, you know, we know that the game went our way, and the first goal went in after 24 minutes when Kate Longhurst netted, and then that was followed by 2 goals in quick succession by Mel Johnson. Then there was another one from Sophie Domingo, her first goal in a red shirt, and then just after half-time, Mel Johnson completed a hat-trick in a really stylish way. Holly Olding also scored a goal, and that was a late one to finish things off after Wolves had pulled a goal back. So it's a 5-goal victory for the Reds. Wolverhampton's got 1, Forest got 6. Once again, absolutely resounding stuff. And if we just have a think, I know there's only been 3 league games played, but if we just have a think about what that does to the table, well, you'd have thought that with all these goals scored, so we scored 3 against Stoke, 7 against Sporting Calcer, and 6 had a 5-goal victory, scoring 6 goals against Wolves. You'd have thought that would put Forest resoundingly at the top of the table, but unbelievably, they're actually 3rd, and Rugby Borough are on the top of the table with a goal difference of 16, whereas Burnley and Forest are joint 2nd with a goal difference of 15. So there's some big, big teams in this league. Now, That is the kind of the factual stuff. And now we're going to have a little chat about what this actually means. And this is going to be a recurring series that we're going to have throughout the season. And I welcome to the podcast a familiar voice to regular listeners. Hello, Emilka.
Hello, nice to be here.
And it's nice to have you on the pod and not just doing little idents in our break times. This is just a really interesting time for women's football and for Forest supporters who are interested in women's football. Obviously, we've heard how excited Ellie is as somebody who is, a young woman who is a real advocate for equality in sport. And I don't want to give too much away, but like me, you grew up watching Forest in the Clough years. You've been to European matches. You've seen Forest struggle for 23 years before coming back to the Premier League in the men's game. Did you ever think you would see Forest supporting the women's game in the way that they are now?
I have to say no, but I mean, it has been apparent over the last few years that the women's game is becoming more active. And so I'm really pleased that we've decided to start playing at the City Ground instead of the smaller grounds, because it just shows that it's being taken more seriously. We've now got professional players paid a better wage, I'm hoping, as well. The thing is, with growing up and not seeing women's football, you kind of don't... Well, you're more discouraged, I guess, from taking it up yourself. And I'm hoping that by having Nottingham Forest in the Premier, playing at the City Ground, is really going to help young girls feel more encouraged to be part of football and joining leagues and feeling that they can play as well. I'm hoping that will make a real difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old saying, isn't there? You can't be what you can't see, and certainly the success of the England team in the last few years has had a massive effect, hasn't it? And again, presumably one that a few years ago you wouldn't have imagined.
No, really wouldn't have imagined that it would be coming to the City Ground, or that young girls would have something to really look up to. And I'm really pleased for the professional players as well, that they finally got a chance to play there. I've seen recently in social media a lot of my friends' daughters now joining women's teams from different places, different football teams. But I think what's really apparent is now they've got the confidence to do it. You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
You mentioned there about Forest going professional. Now, for those of you who are new to the women's game, and let's be honest, we're relatively new to it in terms of the scale that Forest are doing this, I do think that it's worth reminding ourselves what Adam said a couple of weeks ago, which is that if you think about it, Forest are effectively in the third tier, but by going professional and playing their matches at the City Ground, it's a massive statement of intent by the club, isn't it? Appointing professional players, some of whom have signed from clubs who are higher up in the football league than Forest are. And obviously money talks, doesn't it? Mm. But that is also a sign that for all the things you can criticise, or you may want to criticise the club ownership for when it comes to decisions affecting the men's team over the last few years, Mr. Marinakis has always been keen to give back to the local community, whether that be in Piraeus or in Nottingham. And in his investment in the women's game, I think we can say is a sign of that. What do you think?
Definitely. It's been nice to see a flurry of interest from players moving in from other clubs and taking Nottingham Forest seriously as a club that's going to really progress. I was surprised that we were third, because you really would think with the goals that we've scored so far that you'd be top of the league. But, we're heading there in that direction, and they just need to be consistent. I think it's also important that you put money into behind the scenes as well. So we have the same physios and trainers, because that's just as important as they're actually playing at the City Ground.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's the old cliche, isn't it? When players in the men's game sign for a new club, one of the cliches they often say when they start, when they do their kind of first interview is, oh yes, well, you look at this as a big club, a great ground, great facilities. And those facilities are probably one of the things that are attracting the professional players to come to Forest, because again, Mr. Marinakis and the club are putting their money where their mouth is on this one. So that's really, really encouraging. The other thing I think way we can say that the club are investing is the fact that they've given the women's team their own social media channels and so on. We're getting player profiles on the website in the same way as we do for the men's team. It's, as somebody who's intrigued in learning a bit more about it, that's really useful to me. And again, because Forest are in the third tier, we're not going to get that coverage that the Man Uniteds, Arsenals, Evertons, Chelsea women that they're getting on things like the BBC and other football websites. So until it happens, Forest are really having to do the work themselves.
Yeah, but, they've become really good at social media with the men's team over the last few seasons. And so using that for the women's team is also going to be very encouraging for the women's players. And it means that it will be more accessible to younger people and wanting to go and see the games. It looks like the ground's starting to fill up really well as well, with people buying the tickets.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really, really important. So, for example, the fixture against Derby will be free to season card holders, and as was the fixture against Sporting Khalsa. It'd be nice, I think, to get a few more people in the ground, and it looks as they're really trying to promote the season cards and the offers. So that's something. But once again, I think if I'm a player, I feel great knowing that I'm playing at the home of the club, at the City Ground. If I'm an opposition player, knowing that I'm going to be playing against a bunch of professionals, many of whom have got experience further up the Football League, and then I see that they're playing in the City Ground, to be honest, it would strike the fear of God into me.
Yeah, they just have a great reputation for when other players come and see in the atmosphere. It doesn't matter that it's not only going to be half full. What matters is that it will grow over time. We get more and more support from young people, to people moving over from the men's team, watching the men's team to the women's team, and that everyone feels encouraged by it. I think the better the results as well, more people will go. Yeah,
momentum will build. And also I think the other thing is worth noting is that it's difficult. We all know it's difficult to get a ticket at City Ground unless you've already got a season card. So actually this provides a nice alternative for families especially to come and show their support for the Reds, albeit in a different way. So I just want to say it's really nice to have that quick chat with you, Emilka. We will check in with you as the season goes on and as Forest hopefully continue their march towards the top of the league, just to see how this idea of building support for the women's game for Forest goes on. In the meantime, I will be back on Friday with the Friday 5, which is our regular weekly roundup show of the big news stories coming out of the City Ground. In an international break, there's obviously no match report, but we will be recording one of our Forest Ramble discussion podcasts at the weekend, and that will be in your feed either on Sunday night or on Monday morning. So thank you very much for listening to us here at 1865. You can find all of our links to find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and anywhere you get your podcasts, and that's at 1865 Football, which also has links to our social media presence. Until next time, come on you Reds.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.